Nicola Sturgeon's new cabinet is meeting for the first time this morning. The First Minister named her senior team on Friday, saying her ministers were selected on merit based on the excellent work they've already done. But scan the list of who's who and the message is clear that equality is central to her programme for government.
This is a team of talents. Each and every member of this government has been appointed on merit. However, I'm also very pleased that half of the Cabinet are women. That reflects my very strong commitment to lead by example when it comes to gender balance.
OK, that was Nicola Sturgeon there, of course, and together with Angela Constance, Rosanna Cunningham, Shona Robison and Fiona Hislop. These are the individuals, alongside, of course, their male colleagues who are going to have a significant impact on how Scotland is run. So let's hear from you on Morning Call. How important is gender equality in politics? And indeed in the wider workplace as well. Should we be doing all we can to help the fairer sex get on at Holyrood, at Westminster, the boardroom or the shop floor? Are you more in favour, perhaps, of the best person for the job, regardless of the sex? Lots to talk about this morning. Our mainline number, as always, 0500 92 95 00. Don't forget, you can also text me on 80295. In a moment, we're going to be talking to Mike Buchanan. He's party leader of Justice for Men and Boys. But first, let me speak to Talat Yaqub, who's a feminist campaigner and a volunteer at Women 50/50. A very good morning to you, Talat.
Good morning.
Thank you very much indeed for coming on to the programme. Now, just put me in the picture here. Women 50/50. Just explain very briefly what the group is.
Well, the group is a whole host of volunteers. It's cross-party. It was launched by Alison Johnson and Kezia Dugdale. And it exists to be able to address the gender inequality that we have in Parliament, in our council chambers and on public boards. And it's about ensuring that we have 50% quotas so that there's a fair representation of women in Parliament.
OK, why do we need to work so hard at this?
Because we have gender inequality within our decision makers right now. We've got 36% MSPs who are women, only 24% women in our council chambers. These are people making decisions that impact the 52% of women that are in our society. And it's important that our decision makers reflect the society they're looking to represent.
Why should we have to try so hard? I would have thought that you'd be more in favour of the best person for the job.
Well, that question assumes that the women aren't best for the job who are part of the 50% quotas. And it also assumes that the men that are there right now are only there purely because of capabilities. We've got to be honest about the fact that there's an institutionalised inequality, which means there can be 76% men in our parliament rather than a 50-50 split.
Okay.
Women are capable, yet only 36% of them are coming along. And when we talk about it as only merit, we assume that only 36% are able to be parliamentarians. And that's just a bit of an insult to women.
OK, Talat, stay with me. I'm also joined by Mike Buchanan, party leader for Justice for Men and Boys. Mike, good morning.
Good morning, Louise.
If we look at the Westminster Cabinet just for a moment, 22 members on the Cabinet, including David Cameron, just 5 are women. Women should be doing all we can to try and promote women as much as we can in politics. There we are. We've just heard from Talat. What do you say?
This has nothing to do with gender equality. It's got everything to do with privileging of women. Far more women than men want to go into politics. So if you have a gender balanced group at the top of politics in the Cabinet, say, it must be the result of women being preferenced over better qualified men.
What do you talk? What do you mean when you say the privileging of women? What do you mean by that?
Well, as I say, because far more men than women want to go into politics.
Says who?
So if I worked for the Conservatives from 2006 to 8, and at that time, for every woman who applied to become an MP, there were 10 men.
So you're basing this on anecdotal evidence. You don't have any hard evidence for me to prove.
That's hardly anecdotal. It was a fact. A great deal more men than women want to go to politics.
OK, well, let's find out. Let's ask Talat, because she's kind of across this as well. We've got to give her a say as well. Talat, is he right? Is this the privileging of women? Are fewer women interested in politics because it's a male-dominated field?
Absolutely not. Much of what Mike says, I disagree with when it comes to feminism, and it's all anecdotal evidence and personal opinion. So I wouldn't see it as factual at all. less women want to go into politics because you are looking at a male-dominated arena. That's just not fair. They're making decisions that impact their lives too. And if it was about a privileged gender, as he's put it, then why are 36% only there? Why are 24% only in our council chambers? It's not about privilege. It's about creating a fairer society and a better parliament.
OK, Mike, let me come back to you. Nicola Sturgeon has stated that her cabinet choice was based on the excellent work that these individuals have done, regardless of sex.
It's absolute nonsense. I mean, if you artificially drive up the proportion of women at the top of your organisation, that has to be an attack on meritocracy. It's really quite simple. I don't see women campaigning for 50% of lorry drivers or oil rig workers to be women. It's always the well-paid, comfortable jobs.
OK, that's what we're talking about this morning. We're talking about gender in politics. We're asking you this morning, does gender matter in politics? Let's see what you've been saying to me this morning. Sandra Patterson's posted on Facebook, yes, it is important politicians represent their electorate. Also, the approach of female politicians tends to be less combative and more constructive. Well, that's an interesting point. What do you think women bring to politics? But first, Nicola Sturgeon's new cabinet is meeting for the first time this morning. We've heard it being mentioned throughout our news bulletins on Good Morning Scotland. The First Minister named her senior team on Friday, saying her ministers were selected on merit based on the excellent work they've already done. There's a 50-50 male-female split in the cabinet, which Nicola Sturgeon hopes will send out a very strong message to women of the future.
My niece, who is in the gallery today with her brother and her cousins, is 8 years old. She doesn't yet know about the gender pay gap or underrepresentation, or the barriers like high childcare costs that make it so hard for so many women to work and pursue careers. My fervent hope is that she never will, that by the time she is a young woman, she will have no need to know about any of these issues because they will have been consigned to history.
Nicola Sturgeon there giving her inaugural speech to the Scottish Parliament. Well, let's ask this morning, how much does gender matter in politics to you? What would you like for your daughter and your granddaughter? How would you like them to view the future if perhaps they did want to have a career in politics? Would you encourage them to do so? But let's not just confine this to politics. Let's look at the bigger workplace. How important is it that we have gender equality across all walks of life? So whether it's Holyrood, whether it's Westminster, whether it's the boardroom or the shop floor this morning, I really would like to hear from you. This morning we're joined by Mike Buchanan. He's party leader of Justice for Men and Boys. We're also joined by Talat Yacoub, who is a feminist campaigner. Before we come back to you, I'd like to speak to Graham, who's joined me on the line from Nairn this morning. He's our first caller on this. Graham, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much indeed for calling in. Do you think that Nicola Sturgeon's 50-50 split is a step in the right direction?
I think it's a good idea to have a mixture of men and women in cabinet or a company boardroom. However, I think that it is illogical to say that it is both a selection on merit and a selection by quota. It can be one or the other, but it is simply not credible to say that it is both. OK. Do you think it's
sending out a confused message?
I think it sounds like a quota, and I think that is bad. It should be merit, but an exact 50-50 split doesn't sound like merit.
All right.
It sounds like a quota.
Do you think she's tried too hard?
We could talk all day about politicians, so perhaps if I don't go there.
OK, Graham, fair enough. Many thanks indeed. Let's get a response to your claim then from Talat Yacoub, feminist campaigner. He says he thinks that this is a quota that she's trying to fill as opposed to being absolutely genuine about who was put in which place. Is he right or wrong, Talat?
I think that the way that Nicola Sturgeon's done it is commendable. I actually don't think it's illogical to have quotas and look for people who have merit. It wasn't a quota that Nicola called it, but she looked around and she found very capable, competent women who she could easily put into the cabinet. It's the fact that she actually went to effort to ensure that there was a representative number of men and women making the key decisions in Scotland. I think it's very easy to do. I think a quota helps eliminate the institutionalised barriers, and it does not matter because you've got enough women there who have the merit and capabilities. When we suggest that they don't, we are insulting women.
OK, let me just get the response of Mike Buchanan, Party Leader for Justice for Men and Boys. Mike, I want to read you out a post on Facebook this morning. It comes from listener Eugene Kelly, and he says, it should be the best person for the job regardless of gender, but the old boys network needs dismantling first. So Nicola's action is a step in the right direction. How do you respond to Talit and also to Eugene?
I think the Old Boys Network is just a feminist conspiracy theory. It's absolute nonsense. I also run an organisation called Campaign for Merit in Business, which challenges the government's drive to increase the proportion of women in corporate boardrooms. Now, I've engaged with House of Commons and House of Lords inquiries and presented them with the evidence that when you increase the proportion of women on corporate boards, corporate performance, financial performance declines. It's black and white. So it's nothing to do with merit. It's always to do with special treatment of women.
So hang on a wee second. Just repeat that. When women come onto the board,
yes,
profits go down. Did you say?
Yes, exactly so. There's cast iron evidence of that, and it's on the website of Campaign for Merit in Business.
Okay,
so
well let's throw this out to our listeners this morning. There's Mike Buchanan stating, with fact, that he says that when women go onto boardrooms, take on dominate places or dominate companies across Britain, profits go down. I'd be really interested to hear your views on this, particularly if this affects your company as you see it. Get in touch with us this morning. 0500 92 95 00. Yes, we are discussing whether gender matters in politics, but let's throw it out to the wider, let's cast the net wider and discuss your general workplace as well. Mike, it's interesting. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm taking on board what you're saying. I have to say I'm a bit surprised. Talat, are you surprised by what Mike's saying?
I'm surprised, certainly, because I don't think it's accurate. But if it is the case that profits decrease, perhaps what Mike is outlining is a sexist attitude. It's not a feminist conspiracy theory, especially when you can open your eyes and you can look outside and you can see the inequality. You can see that on average in Scotland,
well,
let's ask him,
Mike.
Women will be paid £108 less than men.
Okay, Mike, are you sexist? Mike, are you sexist?
Of course not. The gender pay gap, which I noticed Nicola Sturgeon referred to in their speech, has been discredited countless times. The reasons why, on average, men earn more than women has been understood for 40 years. It's to do with their lines of work, to do with seniority, to do with issues like men being more prepared than women to work in dangerous jobs. 96% of work-related deaths are of men. Now it's well understood why there are few women at the top of major organisations. Just to come back to that, Dr. Catherine Hakim, a world-renowned sociologist, published a paper on preference theory in 2000. And she showed that while 4 in 7 British men are work-centred, only 1 in 7 British women is. So when you drive up the proportion of women in any work environment, you can expect performance to decline. And it's the main reason that the NHS is in crisis. The average female doctor will work only half the hours over her career compared with her male counterparts. And female doctors are disinclined to work on social hours or full-time or to work in stressful environments such as A&E. And you've got to ask who picks up the tab for the problem with women's work ethic. It's men in the main, because men collectively pay 72% of the income taxes which largely finance the state, and women only 28%. British men pay £68 billion more income tax every year than British women. So
you're saying that we don't have the same work ethic?
Of course not. As I say, that came out of preference theory. I invite anyone to look at it on the internet. It's not that some women don't work hard, because of course they do.
I'm glad you clarified that. That's okay.
But the issue is that for every woman who is really work centred, there are 4 men who are. So that's why men dominate the top of politics, business, and other areas.
Okay, let me just remind you of the numbers this morning: 0500 92 95 00. If you're listening at home, Or maybe you're listening at work. Let's hear from you this morning. We are discussing whether gender matters in politics and indeed the wider workplace. Let's hear from you this morning, particularly if you work in a male-dominated business. Perhaps you're the lone woman. Perhaps it's completely the other way round. Do you welcome more women? Do you welcome equal representation in your workplace? What do you think women bring? Do you think it's important? Does it matter to you? 0500 92 95 00. We're focusing all this, of course, on Nicola Sturgeon's cabinet choice. It's 50-50. It's straight down the middle. She says that she has made her choice based on individual merits, based on the fact that these individuals deserve to be given the portfolios that she's handed them. But nevertheless, we are looking at a 50-50 split. Is she right? Is this a step in the right direction? Or, as Graham suggested, perhaps a little bit contrived? He was our first caller. Let's hear what Dennis has to say. Dennis, you're on the line from Aberdeen. Good morning. Welcome to the programme. Your point.
Good morning, Louise. We've got the sun in Aberdeen. We haven't seen it for about a week.
Good. Well, I wonder if the sun's shining on Nicola Sturgeon this morning as she looks ahead to running the country. It's a brand new cabinet. We wish her luck, nevertheless. What do you think about the makeup of her cabinet?
Well, I wish her luck too, but I think this matter of males versus females in the cabinet is a complete and utter red herring. What we want in Scotland is better government. We don't want a mix of government that's precisely 50-50. What we want is better government. We've lacked in proper legislation for the last 2 years because the country's been diverted with the referendum issue. We want to get back to some decent legislation. OK,
now I'm sure that Nicola Sturgeon would say that would be one of her priorities, absolutely. She says that she has also based her selection on her cabinet based on the excellent work that they've already done. Clearly she feels these are the people who are best placed to take Scotland forward. Are you happy with her choice, Dennis?
Not at all. But all she's done is she's got rid of Alex Salmond's cronies and put in her own cronies. That's all she's done.
What do you mean by that?
With friends in politics. That's how it works.
Or perhaps as she would
picks
say,
her own team based on who she likes best.
OK, so
not a case of performance.
All right. Now, do you have proof for this? Because she say that these are individuals who've all done excellent work.
No, I don't have any proof to that effect. But what I know is I'm on receipt of very poor government. And I don't think the mix, male-female mix in the government is going to make one iota of difference. OK,
do you agree with Dennis, yes or no? 0500 92 95 00. He thinks that this 50-50 split will have no impact on the government and its quality. Be keen to hear your thoughts on this morning. You're listening to Morning Call with me, Louise White. You can also text me on 80295 or indeed why not post on Facebook or Twitter. You will also find us at BBC Radio Scotland. Let's see what you've been saying in actual fact on social media. Gail Paris has posted on Facebook, gender absolutely makes a difference in whether the job is done well. I'd love to say that this is a great step in leading by example, but I work in a very male-dominated industry and there is no way I will look at the Scottish Government and say, oh great, let's employ more women in top positions. And Fraser's posted on Facebook, people should be there because of their ability, not their sex. Interesting comments this morning. Whether you disagree or agree, get in touch with me. You can pick up the phone 0500 92 95 00. Let's go to Portobello now. We haven't heard from a lady as yet, so let's bring in Margaret. Welcome to the programme, Margaret.
Good morning, Louise. I'm no lady, I'm a woman, OK?
You're a woman, fair enough. Not one of the fairer sex, you're just one of us.
I'm a hard-working woman, yeah.
Excellent, right. OK, you've got the airwaves of Radio Scotland. Take it away, Margaret.
Thanks very much. Well, I am phoning because I think that your male representative has just really highlighted the fact that the whole of the care economy in Scotland underpins the rest of the profit-winning corporations. It's supported by women. It's women who are most of the social carers. It's women who are most of the classroom assistants, the teachers, the nurses. And the system depends on them being low paid or, in fact, most of the care economy being unpaid. And I think the gender balance in the cabinet, it doesn't guarantee that there's going to be equality for women in Scotland. There isn't a kind of drip-down effect. But I think it highlights the fact that the male control of budget, of decision-making has to be challenged. Priorities have to change. We have to reflect the value of the whole care economy.
OK. Margaret, are you in favour of what Nicola Sturgeon has done, or do you think perhaps it looks a wee bit contrived, the way she's done it?
I think it's a start. I think whenever women at any time challenge power, then people are going to say, "Oh, that's wrong." I think there is a big danger to assume that having women in power is going to immediately change things for the better. I think there are always attempts to incorporate us into the previous sort of power dynamic, but I think it's a start. I think it's a good signal. I think the fact that fewer women have applied, as the guy was saying, to be members of trade union power structures, members of parliament, is because most women are still doing most of the caring. There's been some, So I think, changing the structure might make it more possible for women to take part.
Margaret, many thanks indeed. Margaret, they're responding to the views of Mike Buchanan, who's still with us. Mike is party leader of Justice for Men and Boys. Mike, I'm afraid to say you have lit the touch paper this morning. We've got another caller here who wants to challenge you. Let's go to Cumbernauld. David, good morning.
Good morning.
OK, Mike's listening. Away you go.
OK, Mike. I have to say I find your position, whilst it's one that you're absolutely entitled to take, is thoroughly unrepresentative of the vast majority of men. And I can reflect on my own experience in terms of seeing opportunities for women. As a society, we prevent women from getting in positions of influence and power.
Nonsense.
Well, if you would listen, because that would maybe be a good start, if you look at what women face on a daily basis, in all of my working life, and I've been working in offices and in finance for 30 years, and women have obstacles placed on them at every turn. There are societal pressures, there are pressures that are placed on them through their employment. People who want to have families, suddenly it's the woman who automatically has to take the caring role. I think you need to look at that and say, what do we do to create the opportunities for women to participate and flourish in politics? 76% of MPs in Westminster means there's something wrong, and it's blocking women from the opportunities to fully participate. And as for your so-called research, is any of it independently, academically audited?
Mike,
you can stick a label on somebody, call them a think tank, and all of a sudden, hey, we've got research that shows. And I find, if it wasn't so serious, if it wasn't so serious, I would find your point laughable.
Okay. Let me just address the issue of the impact of increasing women in boardrooms. If you go onto the website, Campaign for Merit in Business, you'll find links to 5 longitudinal studies which all report that when you increase the proportion of women on corporate boards, on average, corporate financial performance declines. Now, that's something that, in the past 3 years, I've challenged hundreds of people who are pushing for more women on boards to discredit those 5 studies. Not one has ever done so. And as far as work experience is concerned, I started in the business sector in 1979, and in 30 years I never once encountered a single example of women being discriminated against, either in recruitment or promotion terms. Not once.
Well, I'm sorry, your experience must be quite unique then, Mike, because I've seen it many times happen, and I'm sure many other people have as well. We want to talk about merit, absolutely, but we need to create the environment and the opportunities for women to flourish as well. And
Margaret Thatcher became Prime Minister 35 years ago. The idea that women haven't had opportunities is ridiculous. If women want to balance their lives and spend time with kids, which is perfectly laudable and good for the kids, then why on earth do we have to spin that as a problem to be solved?
I don't. I'm not saying that at all.
And
it's the type of misogynistic argument that I would expect to hear. What we need to have is an environment where the opportunities are there. Having one female prime minister in the country in how many 100 years? is not an example of suddenly opportunities are open to everyone. If that were the case, there would be hundreds of women MPs at Westminster, and they're not.
OK. David, many thanks for phoning up this morning and putting across your views. Talat, we heard you just sneak in there. Do you want to join in the conversation? Talat Yaqub, feminist campaigner.
Your last two callers are wonderful and accurate. They perfectly outline exactly what I've been saying. We need to create a level playing field. And that's all that Nicola Sturgeon's done, create a level playing field and looked for the people with the merit, the women with the merit, to get them onto her cabinet. And I actually really hope that she signs up to the Women 50-50 pledge, because I think her views on this and the campaign's views on this are absolutely the same. And when it comes to Mike, I'm afraid he is just an illustration of an attempt to justify sexist attitudes and the privilege of men. Okay. And quite frankly, I'm not interested in that.
So I come up with reasoned arguments, and the best that you can do is shaming tactics.
Well, not everyone's agreeing that you have reasoned arguments, Mike, but nevertheless, we are more than happy for you to come on Morning Call and to put your case, and you certainly are sticking to your line. Let me just ask you, do you have a daughter, Mike?
Yes, I have two.
OK, what do you want for them?
I want for them to have exactly what they've had. I mean, they're now in their late 20s, and I want them to have what they've had throughout their life, which is equal opportunities.
You do want them to have equal opportunities?
Of course, but women have had it. Women have had equal opportunities for decades. The reason that I go back to the point that the reason that there are fewer women than men, let's say at the top of major companies and at the top of politics, is that far more men than women are work-centred. So that must translate into men dominating the top of fields, unless you have special treatment for women, privileging of women, which brings us back to Nicola Sturgeon's point. That's exactly what she's doing.
Let's go to
Mike,
Paul.
Can I ask, Mike?
Okay,
are you suggesting that 52% of the population who are women, and that population includes your daughters, have a poor work ethic? That's essentially what you're saying about women.
I go back to the point that Dr. Catherine Hackham's preference theory, her research showed in 2000 that while 4 in 7 British men are work-centred, only 1 in 7 British women is. So you would expect an 80-20 split at the top of organisations and politics and so on the basis of that one factor alone. OK.
We are going to move on just for a moment. We will, of course, be coming back to this discussion, and I'm looking forward to chatting to Pauline. I know that Pauline's a caller. She wants to put her points. Nevertheless, at the moment, you have been listening to Mike Buchanan and to Talat Yaqub, and we will be going back to them discussing this whole issue of gender in politics, whether it matters to you in politics or whether it matters in wider working life. Make sure you get in touch with us this morning.
0500 92 95 00. Morning Call on BBC Radio Scotland.
And I'm really looking forward to more of your views. If you fancy phoning in and taking part, we'd love to have your company. 0500 92 95 00. We are talking about gender in politics. We're asking whether, particularly this 50-50 split that we're seeing in Nicola Sturgeon's new cabinet, matters to you. Now, she's very much of the view that the best person has got the job, but nevertheless, it is a 50-50 split. So let's get your views on this. Does gender matter in politics? And indeed, the wider workplace. Let's hear about where you work and how the sexes are split. Lee Martin has tweeted, good morning, Lee. Quotas are bad. You shouldn't just be put on a board because you're a woman, gay or disabled. It should be the best person for the job. However, Pete's texted in, hi Pete, nobody gets into politics on merit. When did you last see a job advert in the paper? Conservative or Labour MP required, must have at least first class honours, no criminal record, and be able to demonstrate previous success in nation management. If there was such an advert, it would read MP required, must have a large mouth. OK, the views of Pete. Many thanks indeed. If you want to give me your views, 80295. Pauline has been waiting a few minutes, so let's go to her right at the very top of this half hour. Pauline, very good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. Now, I understand you're a lawyer, so you felt riled enough to call in. I don't know whether it was Mike Buchanan's comments or not, or whether you just want to share me your views this morning, but away you go.
It certainly was Mike Buchanan's comments. I did take some umbrage at the suggestion that my work ethic was less than my professional male counterparts. The reality for me is that I was a lawyer for some 7 years before I decided to get married. In that period, I worked full-time, well over 40 hours a week, and my work ethic was the same as my colleagues. I earned much the same at that point. I then got married, and within 2 months I was paid off. I got a new job. A year and a half later, I fell pregnant and miscarried, and within 3 months, I was paid off. Then I got a new job. I worked there for a year. I had a baby and was paid off on maternity leave.
Okay,
now, there's absolutely no question that a male colleague would have been treated in the same way, and I have no doubt that it was my personal choices that resulted in me being made redundant on each occasion.
OK, we're definitely seeing a pattern emerging there in what you're highlighting to us, Pauline. Let me just remind our listeners that we're joined by Talat Yaqub. She's a feminist campaigner. We're also joined by Mike Buchanan, who's party leader of Justice for Men and Boys. Mike, you're annoying Pauline. She is a lawyer. Just be warned. How do you respond?
I think I respond, you really can't approach this from individual anecdotes. I go back to the point that 4 times as many men are work-centred as women. So there's no point, saying this woman is hardworking. Of course there are hardworking women, but there are 4 times as many hardworking men, and that has to translate, or at least without manipulation, like Nicola Sturgeon is doing, that has to translate, if we're going to appoint on merit, in men taking up the majority of posts at the top of organisations.
Pauline, do you want to respond?
Yes, I would. I actually now work 4 days a week and have a second job. The reason I've had to do that is my second job accommodates around the child that I've got. Now, I thought about going back to full-time, and I contacted a number of legal recruitment agencies and was told, if you're looking for a full-time position, particularly in some of the larger firms where there are better paid positions with better benefits, you will not be able to guarantee finishing in time to pick up your son from childcare at 6. So that just wasn't an option for me. So I would say that there isn't the correct infrastructure for us as women to work the same hours with the same work ethic as men.
Okay.
Because the vast majority of childcare will finish around about 6 o'clock.
OK. Pauline, many thanks for your call this morning. Let's go to Liz in the northeast. Liz, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see the ladies phoning in, or the people who happen to be ladies. I'm too scared to even describe you as women, ladies, girls this morning. Liz, on you come. Welcome to the programme.
Thank you.
Away you go.
Well, in 1980, I was given the opportunity to create a catering section for a large construction company at their head office in Edinburgh. Mm-hmm. And at the final interview, they offered me a salary which was actually less than the one which was advertised. And I asked why, and they said it was because I was a woman.
They actually said that to you?
And I stood up to them and I said, but it's exactly the same job that I will be doing. So that's, basically said it wasn't fair. And they found it in my favour. And after that, they treated me with the greatest of respect. Mm-hmm. And I can only say that I had a very good experience. And, of course, it was very much a male-dominated place.
So basically, you stood up to them right from the very beginning?
Well, I was quite nice about it. And they, in return, respected what I said. And I must admit, I even met one of the directors last year again, and he still remembered working with me in Edinburgh.
Liz, many thanks indeed for your call. Let's go to Alan in Livingston. Alan, good morning.
Good morning.
Your thoughts on this?
I agree. I think that women should get top jobs. They have to be careful on this one. If there is 10 vacancies to be filled, and the best 10 people are 10 women, excellent. I don't have a problem with that. I think it's wrong to promote somebody just because they are a man or a woman. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm retired now, and I spent 20 years working for British Aerospace. The amount of female engineers, electrical, mechanical, etc., and laser engineers was very, very small. Mm. So it was practically impossible to promote women because there just wasn't enough of them. So I think we have to be careful on this one. But generally, women are less confrontational than men, and I think that's probably a better thing. And I would like to see far more women in positions of seniority than there currently are. Whether Nicola Sturgeon has made the right decision with the people that she has promoted or not, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Time will tell. But she's made the plunge. So let's just see what happens.
OK, and what do you say to Mike Buchanan's claims that women have a different work ethic, that men basically work harder and have greater success. And if you look at boardrooms, then boardrooms that do adopt more women see a fall in profits. Any thoughts on that, Alan?
Well, as far as boardrooms are concerned, I've no experience of that. But from my experience in British Aerospace, the few women that work there put in as much effort as the men. So I don't really have an issue with working with women at all. The reason I don't think they're getting promoted is because there's just not enough of them. We need to get more women into the workplace. The bigger the workplace pool of women, the more chance they have of getting through this glass ceiling.
OK. Mike Buchanan, do you want to come in here? We should be trying to expand the talent pool. Let's get as many good quality people in as possible, regardless of sex.
But that's exactly where we are. I mean, it's interesting that the gentleman talked about engineering. At Brunel University today, postgraduate engineering students, some postgraduate engineering students are entitled to a sponsorship of £23,000 on the grounds of gender alone. So only women can get that, and for a man to get that £23,000, he'd have to have a sex change. Now you have to ask, why does the country might need more engineers, but why does it specifically need more female engineers?
Well, let's go back to the comments.
It's known that a far smaller proportion of female engineering graduates go into the line of work, and once they have their first child, very few engineers go back. Very few women go back into engineering full time. It is money down the drain.
Well, maybe we'll pick up on the points of Pauline, the lawyer who phoned in, and she said that, there clearly was a pattern emerging. Every time she had a baby, she got paid off. She said that, for her to go back into full-time work, she would have needed a huge amount of support to be able to actually work full-time and look after children. Coupled with the fact, we've got the comments from Margaret, who phoned in earlier, who said that women actually form the backbone of the care sector in Britain. Women are being suppressed when, in fact, we should be giving them every Ingalls opportunity.
They are not being suppressed, Louise. They are making choices in life. And it's, the idea that, let's say, a woman who works part-time and spends plenty of time with her kids is somehow oppressed. I mean, there's plenty of evidence that says that women want to work a lot less than they actually are.
Okay.
Mike, I'm sorry. They're not. They're just simply not making
Talat,
choices.
in you come.
You can't call the choices that women make today free choice when they are picked from a restricted set of choices in the first place. You are looking at things through a prism of actually quite a sexist attitude. You are using anecdotal evidence. We've got an array of women who have just called in, and men who are saying to you that actually what women are encountering is institutionalised inequality. Now, if we look at our Parliament, what we see is that institutionalised inequality illustrated. Okay. And what we can do to change that is a 50% quota, and we can create the decision makers in Scotland actually looking like the people they are making decisions for.
Okay,
it's quite simple.
You were listening there to Talat Yaqub. Hang on, Mike. You were listening there to Talat Yaqub, feminist campaigner. Mike, we've heard from you. I do want to go back to the phone lines. It's really busy this morning. Let's go to Cumbria, and Heather joins me on the line. Heather, good morning.
Good morning, Louise.
Welcome to the programme. Your comments.
Just to reiterate, Mr. Buchanan, of course, is quite right with the statistics, but of course, all the work has fallen to the woman traditionally in the home and bringing up the children. I think today, younger families, you see men taking much more care of children. Sometimes the work is shared, so things are changing. It's just a case of the mechanism catching up. But I would say, really, because everything has been male-dominated for so long, there's an awful lot of chumminess and covering up and excluding. And because of this, it's thwarted the country, the world, and everything else. And I think equal partnership between men and women could offer a much better world. I know it's idealistic, and I know in principle it might not be ideal choosing an equal number of both, but in principle I agree wholeheartedly with it.
Many thanks indeed, Heather. Let's go to air. Rosalind, good morning. Welcome to Morning Call.
Good morning, Louise.
Let me just remind everyone of our number, 0500 92 95 00. Rosalind, it's good to hear from you.
Morning. First of all, I am really delighted about Nicola Sturgeon choosing the cabinet that she has, which is a 50-50 split, and they're all in merit. All the women are well known for the jobs that they do. Secondly, young women nowadays, my daughter being one of them, works full time. She brings up her children, she runs a home, and she works part-time in a salon as well. There is 3 jobs. If you were paying someone for each job, that would be 3 wages. Now, what part does this man not understand that women don't pull their weight?
OK, Mike, how do you respond to Rosalind?
I'm not saying women don't pull their weight. I'm making a point. I'm making a point about paid employment. That's what preference theory is all about, that 4 times more men than women.
Yeah, but women don't get paid for looking after children. Women don't get paid for running the home. That's the point she's making. These are 3 jobs that her daughter's holding down.
But why on earth should people be paid for that? I mean, it's something that they will do anyway. It's quite ridiculous.
Well, let's put it this way. If women didn't have children, we would be extinct by now. So women actually give up careers to have their children. They're the one that gives up the careers, not the men.
But yes, but they do it willingly because
they have yes, maybe willingly, but the onus is still on the woman, not the man. How many men? There will be a minority of men, yes, will give up their jobs and be house husbands, but it's not normal. It's not. I don't mean it's not. It doesn't happen normally. There is not a big number of that.
Of course it's not, because men and women are different, and men and women generally make different choices in life.
Some people don't have a choice, Mike.
Exactly. I feel your attitude is a bit sexist, and I understand where you're coming from, but I'm asking you to understand where I'm coming from, being a woman. And a woman, I make the decision to have children. I then have to put my career on hold, or did have to put my career on hold to have my children, or I wouldn't have had any children. Now, it's actually society's view of women that they're the ones that give everything up to have the children. Why can it not be split, 50-50? Mm-hmm. Because there are other, like Denmark and other countries, there is maternity leave and there's paternity leave. Men get as much leave as women do.
Rosalind, many thanks indeed for your call. I can feel the steam coming out your ears from where I'm sitting here in Glasgow. That was Rosalind on the line from Ayr. Let's go to Scott in Edinburgh. Scott, good morning.
Good morning.
All right, this is not about men and women for you, is it?
Oh, I hope not. I'd like to say, I'm not the biggest fan of the MSP by the SNP, by a long way, but I think what Nicola Sturgeon's done is very positive. I don't doubt these are the best MSPs that she's picked for her cabinet. I'm lucky enough to work in a university which takes these issues very seriously indeed. Mm-hmm. And I think the temptation is, though, to sometimes think about, gender balance on committees and things. But I think what we've learned is it's much more about the culture of the organisation and how it operates. And key to that is about being family friendly. And I think some of your callers have touched on this already. And I think that helps everyone. It helps both men and it helps women in the workplace. And it also helps make sure that women have the opportunities to take part and contribute, which means that in the longer term they can be promoted.
Okay.
Now, and a great example is what's happened this morning. So Nicola Sturgeon's got this 50-50 cabinet, which is fantastic. But the first meeting started at 8:30 in the morning. And I'm a father with some caring duties. I take my son to school in the morning. I'd find it virtually impossible to attend that meeting. If that meeting was not happening on a regular basis, I would then lose out, and it would make promotion for me a lot harder. So I think it's about thinking about the culture of the organisation rather than, manning committees and making sure people have the opportunity to contribute in a positive way.
Many thanks indeed, Scott. Let's go to Oliver now. Oliver, I'm really glad you phoned in. You've kind of got an interesting take on all this because you and your wife have kind of swapped roles, haven't you?
Yeah, hi, good morning. Thank you for taking my call. Yes, my wife is really strong. She, before we had our child, we already discussed and agreed, what our roles will be. So we both look after the kids, and lucky that our companies do allow us to have childcare, so we can leave work early on rotational days. So she will take that, although she's in a different company, but we both came in, tied our timing together pretty well. So on certain days, I will leave early to go home and look after the kid, and certain days she will go home and look after the kids. But I strongly believe it's not. I think women should fight for that that control, that availability, so that they can progress in future as well. Instead of just a male and women have to stay home and look after their kids. Alternatively, we would have to get our families to help out and look after the kids, so both of us can progress in our workplace. We've got to be equal. That's why I'm allowing her, or I don't want to say allow her, but that's why I respect. That's why I respect that she wants to progress as well. And it's great that we had this chat before we even had a kid. But sometimes we don't have these opportunities, and I guess it's just a case of women have to be stronger and fight for that chance to stay and work late and have the husband or the father to come home and look after the kid and take our turns. And we just got to respect that, really.
Good for you, Oliver. Many thanks indeed. Let's hear from Brendan in Fortrose now. Brendan, good morning.
Good morning. I really have to say I'm enjoying this conversation.
Me too.
I'm afraid the gentleman that is fighting the case for business, I have to say I am a businessman, and I've worked across businesses in many different sectors. And he seems to forget that in business we have a huge problem, but not having enough women actually at board level. Why do we need them? Yes, we actually do have to positively take action to get them in, because women are our customers. And if we want to understand our customers, a load of guys sitting around a table has proven to be the wrong equation. So there's a positive reason why we need more women in business. But getting back to the politics, which is actually the important bit, the problem is that this all starts at the grassroots level. Less women get engaged at the grassroots level at the local branch or region, no matter what political party it is in. The result is you get a load of guys deciding who is going to go forward to become the candidate to become MP. You'll end up with an election with a load of guys again. So, the women need to actually engage at that level, not so much, they will then come through the system, and therefore there will be more women available to bring onto the cabinet. And I have to say that when we say that the reason is at the moment the men get chosen because they are the best, I deal with politicians. I have done for many years. And if that is the best that we've got, some of those politicians, frankly, are a disaster. And I don't just mean Scotland, United Kingdom, Europe as well. These politicians are not the best. And there has to be better women out there to be able to represent the women in society.
Brendan.
Because the women in society are part of the purchasers that business relates to. So it goes round in circles again.
Okay. Brendan, I'm glad you've enjoyed today's discussion. Hopefully everyone else has as well. Your thoughts and views on this are flooding in. Brendan, many thanks indeed.